Welcome to the But Also Trail Running Podcast. I'm your host, Celeste Fong. Let me start with a warning that this is an adult-only podcast. There will be profanity and indecent conversations. I would apologize, but I'm not really sorry. My guest today is I'm going to go with infamous, but the one and only Lori Riley. Say hi, Miss Lori.
Hi, Miss Lori.
Oh my God. Okay.
I only did that because Rick did that last week.
I know. I knew it. Why are all my friends such brats?
I don't know. Because we are. Hi. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Good. I just got bit by a mosquito, but I'm okay.
Oh,
Why are there still mosquitoes? It's almost October, for crying out loud.
put on your bug spray.
No, I'll just get bit. I'm fine.
I got bit by a spider a couple weeks ago. And for anyone who doesn't know, spiders are like my only weakness. Like I'm petrified of spiders.
Wait a minute. How did you get bit by a spider?
I was
Did it
out on
crawl on
trails.
you when you were sleeping?
No,
How did it get on you? How did a spider get on you?
because everyone makes me go first.
No, that's not true. I have hiked with you and I have gone first. So anyway, so you went first and your face went into a spider web and it jumped on your face.
No, it was my leg.
Oh, okay.
And I had a big spider bite on it. It looked really gross.
I don't think I've ever had a spider bite me before.
You probably have, and you just don't know it because it kind of looks almost like black
Was
and
anybody
blue.
with you? Was there witnesses?
No, but I had the mark. I wasn't hallucinating. All
Did it
right.
look like a fox?
Hey, just because I've been known to hallucinate on the very rare occasion
Right.
or all
Maybe
the
it was a
time,
spider or maybe it was a fox. And maybe it
how
was
would
a
we
lizard.
know?
Right. Exactly. Anyway, so you get bit by a spider, but you're fine.
I did.
You
Yeah, I
survived.
lived. Because when I
Good.
first saw it, I was like, is this a tick bite? Or because they kind of look similar, but ticks are more bullseye. Spiders are more like red.
Right. Like they have big teeth and they gnaw at it.
Yeah.
Right.
So now I'm not going to sleep tonight. So I thank you for bringing up my trauma. Anyway, so for anyone who doesn't know, Lori is a reporter for the Hartford Courant, and you're a sports journalist, which is freaking awesome. So I kind of want to talk to you about that. So first of all, and here's the thing, I know a lot about your history because we've been friends for a lot of years, but not everybody does. So to go back, when did you decide that this was what you wanted to do?
Probably when I was in high school. I went to a Red Sox game with my class. I think it was like an English class, or actually, no, it was a school trip, but we had an assignment that we had to do for an English class, and I had to write a story about the Red Sox game. So I did. And I just thought, wow, that's so cool. Like I can actually like go to games and like people will pay me and I can, write story. Like this is awesome. And I love Fenway Park and I love the Red Sox. So I thought that's probably what I was going to do when I grew up, was go be a baseball writer. And I quickly realized that, there's a lot of baseball games and baseball, starts in February and it ends in almost November. And you basically have to work all the time and you have no life. And I said, I really want to do that. So, because I kind of want to have a life. So I ended up covering, I covered a lot. I went to Rutgers University for journalism. I was a journalism major and I did a lot of news stuff. I did some sport. I worked for the school newspaper. I did a lot of sports stuff. And when I graduated, I got a job at the Trenton Times in New Jersey. And I mostly covered high school sports, but I also went and covered I graduated a long time ago. I'm kind of old. So 1986 was when, and as a Red Sox fan, I'm kind of pained by this because the Mets beat the Red Sox in the World Series. And actually that year I covered the Mets at the end of the year. Like they sent me to the Mets. So I got to go to the Mets and I got to go to the Giants and I got to go to all these things. I was 21 years old and 22 and I had, all of a sudden I was just I covered high school sports too, but they kind of just would throw me into these situations and I didn't know what was going on. And, you learn quick when stuff like that happens because you got to figure out what's going on. You kind of think on your feet. And back then, think about it. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't even have, I had a computer that was basically a word processor and you had to go look for a payphone, and you had these little like plastic or like rubber couplers, and you dial so you'd write your story on the word processor, and then you'd take the paper, you'd dial the number, and then you'd wait till the little beep came, and then you stick the phone into the couplers, and that's how we sent our stories in
That's
to the
insane.
newspapers back then. Yeah. And then you couldn't even save your story on, there was only enough capacity for one story, so you'd have to erase it and like start over again the next day, so you couldn't save any of your stories. But newspapers back then were obviously, I mean, when I was working in the late 80s and early 90s and even the, early 2000s, newspapers were still kind of in their heyday. Like
Yep.
when I came to Hartford in 1989, and they hired 70 people to work at the Hartford Courant. I was one of 9 high school writers that they hired, which is on right now we have about 20 people at the Hartford Courant total. We used to have 400
Think
when I
about
when I
that for a second, like
yeah,
the
yeah.
change.
Yeah. So newspapers were big. People still got their news from the newspaper, not from the computer.
Hmm.
There was no 24/7 news cycle, which there is now, which is exhausting. We have to write when things happen. We have to write them. Back then, if something happened in the morning, you could spend all day writing your story, and deadline would be whenever, and 11 o'clock at night or whenever, and you put your story in, and it would get in the paper the next day. Now, if something happens, I got to write it, boom, like that, and it goes right up
And
on
people
online.
want that instant
Yeah, they do.
gratification.
Which I get it. I get it. It's news, but that's why the newspapers are kind of, we're all kind of dinosaurs now because of that. So anyway, yeah, so I saw that whole revolution kind of come through, and it's really sad because I still like the printed word. I still read actual books, like not, like an actual book with pages. I
No,
don't know if you know what that is.
I do all three. I do Kindle, Audible, and physical books. There
Right.
is something about turning a page.
It's wonderful. So I'm old school, and I'm nearing the end of my career, but I've seen a lot of stuff. I've seen like a revolution in women's sports. When I first started covering UConn, I covered the UConn women in 1991 when they went to the Final Four. No, I went to write a fan story. That's what they told me to do, write a fan story, because nobody understood why people wanted to watch women's basketball like that. I'm like, what? That's so weird.
Isn't that
So
crazy?
yeah, so I saw all that, and it was really, I had like a front row seat to this, and it's been really cool, and just yeah. So I mean, that's where I've been at the Current for 36 years, and it was funny because I was going to go to Boston. I was on my way to Boston. I was going to stay here for a couple years and head up to. I wanted to work for the Globe, and I don't know. I just got comfortable here and settled down, and I liked Connecticut, and I just stayed here. So
I'm personally, I'm glad you did, but I'm selfish,
yeah.
so
Yeah, no, I did. I had kids, that was the other thing. And once you start having kids, it's harder to move, and, so I just stayed, and I've had a great career. I've enjoyed every day. I wake up and I go, what am I going to do today? Like, who am I going to talk, cause my job is getting to talk to people and getting to meet new people pretty much every day. I meet some new people. And you never know what you're going to write about, who you're going to talk to, what interesting person is going to come along. So,
and what's
I don't
going to
know.
happen that day, right?
Right. Oh yeah. No idea. No idea. Or just, you go into things like you remember the story I wrote about Lisa Marshall, whose husband had Alzheimer's,
Mhm. Mhm.
Peter Marshall.
Yep.
So like that's the kind of story I got really involved in. And I usually don't get too involved in stories, but I had seen it on the Run 169 page. Somebody had written about it, and I said, "Oh, this sounds like an interesting story." So I reached out to Lisa Marshall, and she said, "Oh yeah, I'll talk to you." And then she didn't. She didn't want to. She was like got cold feet and didn't want to talk to me. And so I reached out again, and I said, "Do you still want to talk?" "Oh, yeah, okay." She was kind of reluctant. And then once we met, it was like, boom, and I go, can I go? I said, do you need somebody to help you? Like, can I go running with Peter? And she's like, oh, absolutely. So then here are me and Peter running 5 miles around Andover Lake. We're doing all this stuff. He has Alzheimer's, and I never ran with anybody that had Alzheimer's before. I didn't know, was he going to get lost? Was what was going to happen? And he was great. And it just gave me such when I wrote that story, I had so much of a better feel for, what Alzheimer's was, what he was like. I knew his personality. Like I can't do that with all my stories, but that in particular was, it was great. I mean, it was a sad ending, but it was, so when I can do stuff like that, that's fun. Oh, not fun. I shouldn't say fun, but what's the word? I can't
Impactful?
think of it. Yeah, it's impactful. It's educational. It's it made me learn something. Like I learned things, and that's a good day when you can learn stuff.
Well, I think
And
sometimes we
broaden
forget
your horizons. Yeah,
in
yeah,
today's day and age, like with everything that, like, a reporter's job is in a way to teach, but to get the news out there and to get honest, you know what I mean? Like honest
it's
stuff out there.
the way it's
Whatever
supposed
it's,
to be.
well, yeah. As I
Sometimes
say,
it
like we
doesn't.
forget that. It's a lot
Sometimes it
different
doesn't turn out
now.
quite that way, but
Well, when you
yeah,
started in the 80s, I'm sure it was a lot different.
yeah, it was.
Okay,
Well,
what
and
was
I
it?
didn't know.
What?
I just didn't know. I was so young, and so I just wasn't. I didn't know a lot of stuff. I mean, I still don't know a lot of stuff, but
Like I feel
I
like that's normal when you're young.
yeah,
All
yeah, yeah,
right, so let me ask you, because in the 80s, especially, I mean, I'm sure you're still dealing with it now, but you really got into a very male dominated field, right?
yes,
Both
very much so.
as a
Yeah.
reporter and as a sports reporter, right? Like even more so. What was that
Yeah.
like?
Yeah. It was very interesting because there were a handful of women that had come before us. It was kind of the cool thing to hire women in the mid to late 80s. That was like a thing,
Okay.
and it was really interesting. As I'm talking to you, my friend Vicky Fulkerson, who is the sports editor of the New London Day, just texted me because
Oh,
she got a new shirt or something. But anyway, so Vicky and I have been around forever. We've been around almost as long as the other. But there, even now there's not a lot of us. But back then it was interesting because like I covered on the local level it was fine. But when I would go to like say the Yankees, okay, you have to go in the locker room. And you're in the locker room and where do I look? Where do I hide? I'm 22 years old, like, young kid, don't really know what I'm doing. And I there it was good because there were people who had been in that locker room already, like Susan Waldman, who also she's the TV person for the Yankees now, or the radio person. She was there, and so they kind of accepted women in the locker room, but there was still stuff. There's coaches walking around with no clothes on, being annoying, and just people would be annoying. I got a little bit harassed a couple of times in a couple of different locker rooms. Not terrible. One time I was told I could not go in the New York Giants locker room. They had cuts that day, and I had been covering them at training camp, and they were up at Pace University, and they would bring you the players into the dining hall, and you could talk to them. Well, then we went to Giant Stadium, and all of a sudden there's a security guard at the door, and he's telling me I can't go in. I'm like, well, there's cuts today. I need to talk to the coach, and nope, can't go in. So, I've had issues, I mean, this is, 1987, 86, so it was a long time ago, but, I've had coaches tell me, no, you can't go in there. There's naked guys in there. Yeah, I know.
I've seen it before.
So maybe put on a bathrobe or a towel or something, it doesn't have to be that way. So, yeah, so it was real. I guess again, I was kind of naive, and I was like the second wave of sports writers, female sports writers coming through. And then after that, now there's, women in the locker room, they have all the sideline reporters and all that stuff. It's not a big deal. And, nobody cares anymore. It's not even a thing anymore, but back then, it's a little scary. I mean, you go in there and you're kind of thinking, is somebody going to say something? Is somebody going to, and you're a little nervous and you're not quite sure what you're doing. And, now I obviously I wouldn't care, but back then, you want people to accept you and I had some great locker rooms too. Like I covered the NBA, I covered the New Jersey Nets for a little bit. And those guys were so nice in that locker room. They were just wonderful. So very accepting and very, very nice to me. So, it just had to depend on where you went. Some places were not as good as others, but, you know, it wasn't that bad.
that's actually good news, like
Yeah.
when I was in college, I worked at like a auto parts warehouse,
Yeah.
and I cannot tell you the sexual harassment.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't even begin to like
Yeah.
men feeling like they could touch you any way they wanted, say anything they
Yeah.
wanted.
Yeah. No, I didn't have any of that. Because people were watching, you know.
Yeah.
It was, and they would get in trouble, and it would be big news.
I
And
was
that's
gonna
the
say, and
last
there's
thing.
probably a little bit of power, right? Like if they did something, you have the power to
Oh yeah.
put it in writing out there, and
Oh yeah. Or, go tell my boss. And yeah, I mean, at our newspaper, there was a woman who was there before we were, and she actually there's a great 30 on 30 ESPN show about her. Her name is Claire Smith, and she actually worked for ESPN for a while. And Claire had that problem. She went to cover, I think I think she covered the American League, and there was no problem there. But then she went to cover like the National League, I don't know, some series or whatever, and a divisional series or something. And I think she was at like the Padres or something. And they threw her out they wouldn't let her in the locker room, and she was on deadline, and she was like, "What the hell? Like, I got to get in." And she was freaking out, and I need quotes, and I got to work, and it became like a big thing. And if anybody's interested in that, I'm pretty sure there was. I remember reading or watching it, the 30 on 30 ESPN special about Claire Smith was very good. So yeah, there was a lot of women that came before me. Not a lot, but there were women that were pioneers, and we were like the second wave, I think, that came through. And now, like I said, I don't go in major league locker rooms that much, or at all. But I don't think it's a big deal.
now do you do more like college and high school?
Yes, I do mostly high school now.
Do you like that?
Um, yeah, I do. I do because college now is it didn't used to be this way, but it's very controlled. They control what you can do, who you can talk to. You used to be able to kind of go talk to anybody, and now it's like they, what has changed is like Instagram, Twitter, TikTok,
Hmm.
they can put out their own product now. They can put out their own news, and they don't really need newspapers or TV or media to do that anymore.
Right.
So we're kind of an afterthought now in college. I think that's how I feel, anyways. From when, I mean, I've covered college stuff for a long time, and it didn't used to be that way. And now they don't seem to care about us as much as they used to. Especially newspapers were like, the bottom of the food chain. So I like high schools because it's not like that. Because I can call a coach and say, "Hey, I want to go do a story on this kid," and I do a story, or anything that's not like controlled, like a college setting. It's just it's hard for me to do the kind of job I want to do the way I used to be able to do it. And even now the WNBA is getting like that too, because I used to cover WNBA, the Sun, and we used to be able to go in the locker room before the game, after the game. Now they don't let you in the locker room anymore.
Really?
And I liked going in the locker room because you could talk to all different people in the locker room, and everybody. Think about this, okay? Now you see these on TV, they have these press conferences, and everybody's sitting there and asking, this questions, and everybody gets the same answer, and everybody writes the same story.
Right.
Everybody. Same story. When I go in the locker room, I can go talk to this person, this person, this person. I can talk to them privately. And I can get a whole different story than everybody else. And it's more interesting. So, and plus people talk to you differently than when they're sitting on a podium with a microphone in front of them and the coach is sitting next to them when they're talking to you one on one.
Right.
So I hate press conferences. I'm not a fan. And that's where it's at now. That's what they do. Everybody, WNBA does it now. Everybody does it. And I'm just like, ugh, give me high school stuff. Give me the New Haven road race. Give me, stuff where I can just talk to people one on one. Like it's just better,
It's like they want to control the narrative of
Yeah,
what's
they
being
do.
said.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's
And
absolutely
for
what it is.
me,
Yep.
we were talking about this earlier, you and I, but like what I like the most about running or any sports. It's the people, right? Like not yeah, the game's been great, whatever. But
Yeah.
I want to know the personal stories, right? Like
Yes. And
and
that's
you're
what I write.
missing
That's what I
that. Like
Right.
and
I like the personal. I don't write about I don't care. I don't care what this. Yeah, okay. I guess I got to know what the score is and who scored the touchdown or what. But I want to know like what makes that person tick. Like I'm like an amateur psychologist. Like there's people like in every great athlete, there's something that fuels them.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it's something deep in their past. It's a family situation. It's somebody died. I mean, it's just there's always you see these people that push themselves like these ultra marathoners. Okay, why do they do that? Why? There's got to be, and maybe they don't even know why, but there's a reason.
And it's
Because
fascinating.
you just right, and you just don't go out and do that. Like people just don't go out and do stuff like that. So to me, that's what I want to know. Why do you do this? Why do you do this? And if you can't tell me, then I'm going to ask your mother, your father, your sister, your husband, your wife, because I want to know why. What makes you go? And that's the story to me. I don't care how many touchdowns you get.
Yeah, that's not
I mean,
like,
I have to write. I have to write about that, but
well, no, I mean, that's okay. That's part of it, right? But
sure. Yeah,
I don't even know what book I was reading. It's fiction, so it doesn't really matter. But they said something like, how many different ways can I say, oh, we have to work together, or we're figuring it out, or like it just wasn't our night, or you know what I mean? Like, right? Like, how many times, like, if you lost, yeah, losing sucks. Like,
yeah,
how am I
right,
supposed to say that differently? Like, and I get you
right,
have to be a good sports, like sportsman or whatever. Like, you can't be an asshole about it, but at the same time, like, I like that authenticity of, you know what? This sucks. And now what do we got to do to make it better?
right. Well, what's interesting is so I covered UConn for many years, UConn women, and they won and won and won and won and won. But always it was when they lost that they were the most interesting. Because then they reacted. Yeah, how do you react when you lose? You win 100 games in a row and then you lose. Like, that's crazy, right? And I want, I kind of want to be there when they lose because that's when all the interesting stuff comes out. And I might be ugly, may not be pretty, but it's gonna be interesting.
And
And
real. And
yeah,
real.
well, for the most part, yeah.
Well, but what I'm saying, like, I don't know, when you lose, it's
Yes,
just like when you're out making friends on the trails or on
yeah,
the road or
yeah,
whatever, doing the
yeah,
miles, right? When
yep,
you're really suffering, you're more
yes.
authentic
Yes, that is true.
because
That
you
is
just
true.
can't fake it at that
That
point,
is
right?
true. Yep, that is true. That's probably why I like it because
Yeah.
it's real. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
No, you're right. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it is. It's that's. I mean, the problem is sometimes people can't. They tell you what they think you want to hear, and you're like, no, I don't want to hear that. I want to hear what you really feel, and they can't go there. And it depends. I mean, it depends on the situation, depends on the circumstances. Like I just did a story today. It's going to be in the paper tomorrow about this woman who has MS and she wants to run the fastest marathon by a woman with MS and she wants to get in the Guinness Book of World Records. This woman is so driven. She really interested. She was a cheerleader at Boston College and she was a cheerleader for the Celtics and she went for journalism and she was like a reporter for like a couple of the teams, I think she did stuff at the Celtics but she's every year the Boston Marathon went by Boston College and she wanted to run it. So she finally did. And it was the greatest experience of her life. And then that summer she found out she had MS.
Wow.
And and she's running Chicago will be her 15th marathon in the last 3 years.
Her.
Yeah. She's run 5 marathons this year. Yeah.
See, that kind of shit is just fascinating to me, right?
Yeah, and it was really, I mean, just an interesting person to talk to. I talked to her husband. He was a cheerleader too, and it was really so. Yeah, so that's the kind of stuff I like to delve into because it's I mean, not to be like morbid or anything like that. Right, but like that time when I wrote about Tony, our
Yes.
friend Tony,
I
like,
bawled.
but that's what it's about,
Yeah. For
right?
anybody who doesn't know, our friend Tony, who we ran with for years, who was amazing, passed away. And he was just such a class act
At a young age,
at a
very
very
young
young
age.
age. Yeah. He was very young and he fought. He had cancer. He fought and fought, but oh, I still miss him.
I know. And
But
that was one of those things. It's like, so I was sitting there, and he loved the Litchfield Road Race.
mhm.
And we had basically walked the Litchfield Road Race the year before. I just happened to run into him. It was not even planned. Like I was going to go cover the race because it was the year after COVID.
Yep.
And they had like a weird race that year. They started it at a different place and they didn't have anybody there. And you just like ran it and you went home and there was no crowds. And so Tony shows up to run it. And I showed up to write a story and I was like, I was going to run it. And I go, I'll just go with Tony. And we had the best time. Not planned. Nothing was planned. It wasn't like Tony said, "Hey, Lori, come on with." No, we just randomly showed up. Both saw each other. I decided I'm going to walk with Tony and run. And then after he died the next year, I said, maybe I don't know if people would want to read how I feel about Tony, but maybe they would. I mean, you would because you were friends with him, but
Right.
you gotta grab other people that don't know Tony
Right.
and make them be interested in Tony. That's my job, is to make people be interested in Tony. And I think I did. I think a lot of people like that story because I just wrote about us walking at the Litchfield Road Race and how much he liked it and all the little stupid things that happened to us. And you know,
Yep.
I talked to you. I mean,
Personalizing people, right? Like that's a good story, whether you know the person or not. I had one of my friends came on a few episodes ago. He's got cerebral palsy.
Mm-hmm.
And I did Notch View with him this past year, and he did like 169 miles.
Holy cow.
Yeah. I'm like, but the personal aspect of it and all the challenges and like that's fascinating to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I would write that story. I would write that story.
Yeah, and that's honestly that's the reason I'm doing this podcast, because of the stories, because of the people. Like, yes, it's interesting. Okay, somebody showed up and they ran 200 miles. Good for them. It's fucking awesome. Or, they ran their first ultra or whatever, even a half marathon, whatever it is. Like, that's great. And I love that for them. But also, like you said, what motivates you? What brought you to running? And all of us have to get here in our own way, and everybody's going to have their own journey. But you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I find all of that so fascinating.
Can I tell you how I got to running?
Oh my God, please tell me.
So I was not a runner. I hated running. I mean, I still hate running, but
I think
I didn't.
Running.
Yeah, I didn't get it, and I went out for track in high school, and I was like, "What is the shortest distance I can run?" And they're like, "the 100." I go, "Perfect. That's what I'm going to run because it's shorter." Nobody told me, you have to run really fast. Like I didn't understand that part. I just thought it was short. So I went out one year and I just didn't like it. So I stopped running and, I ran on and off in college, you jog or whatever. And then I moved to Connecticut and we had 9 sports writers that were covering high school sports. And they said, okay, everybody has to have a summer sport because, once high schools are over, what do you do?
Right.
So of course everybody else picked, baseball and tennis and golf and, all the other sports. And the only thing left was running. And they're like, who wants to do that? And I'm like, oh, I'll do it. Like, whatever. I don't know,
Right.
I don't know anything about running. Like I knew who Bill Rogers was and stuff, but cause I grew up in New Hampshire, I knew about the Boston Marathon, but that was it. And even I screwed that up that summer because there was 2 people named Bill Rogers. One lived in Connecticut. Okay. And I thought it was the other guy, the actual Bill Rogers, like the famous one.
Yeah.
So I wrote it like it was the famous one, and he won some race in like Norwich or something. And I'm like, oh my God, Bill Rogers. And people are like, no, that's a different Bill Rogers. I'm like, oh, okay. And I also got Johnny Kelly mixed up because there was 2 of them too. So that, it's confusing. Like I didn't know anything. So I was covering road races every weekend because that's what I did. And I met all these people who a lot of them I still know today, 30 years later.
Yeah.
And I did not run. And my husband ran. He ran the Falmouth Road Race. I went and covered that. He ran a bunch of different things. He ran Litchfield. And I just was like, I don't want to do that. Like, this is silly, And I had my daughter in 2000 and I started walking. And then I went to my daycare provider had breast cancer. So she was like, she was into the Race for the Cure. And she said, you should go to it, the one in New Britain.
Yep.
So I was like, all right, I'll go. So I'd been walking. So me and my neighbor went and walked and I walked and ran. I finished it in like 46 minutes or something. And I thought I was going to die. That was it. I couldn't, I couldn't go any faster than that. That was it. I was done. but I liked it. And I was like, I'm going to go back and do another one. So I did the Avon race, which was in West Hartford. And they had like Catherine Switzer came and Greta Weitz was there. And it was really cool. It was a great race. It was a women's race. And my friend Bill Tribu, who was 80 something years old, the first, he was really fast. The first race I ran in, he wanted to know what my time was. And he was 80 and he was running like a 24-minute 5K.
Okay.
And I wouldn't tell him what my time was because I knew he would make fun of me because he was a big trash talker. So he goes and looks at my time and he starts laughing. Okay. He's laughing. I'm 39 years old and he's laughing at me. And it just was like, wow. So that right then I was like, you know what? I want to beat this guy. Like I need to have him. He used to tell me, when I die, I'll have the hearse slow down. And then, maybe you can pass me then. Like you can, that's how you can beat me. And I was like, oh my God, like this guy, it's too, but we were really good friends. Like I loved him. He actually lived to be like 101
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
he ran until he was 95. He ran the New Haven Road race, the 5K, and he actually beat people, which was like, he was so amazed by that.
Can
But
you
we got to be
imagine
really good
like a
friends.
95-year-old guy passing you and you're just like,
Yeah, no. And he was so shocked. He's like, I beat like 100 people. I'm like, yeah, you did. So I tore my ACL, went through rehab, lost weight, started running, and I found I could run like much faster. And I was like, oh, okay. So I knew Bill was going to be at this race. It was a lobster loop in Canton. And I went to the lobster loop. All my friends know this story. I went to the lobster loop that morning and I saw him, but I didn't say hi to him. And about a mile, so we all started the race, and about a mile in, I passed him. And I go, hey, Bill. I go, hey,
that's
Bill.
amazing.
And I freaking took off. Okay. I was running like, and I came through the finish. I ran it like 27 minutes. Came through the finish line and his wife's like, where's Bill? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I thought maybe he had a heart attack after I passed. I don't know. Like, I beat him though. So he finishes, he's 82. He finished in like 28 minutes. And he comes up to me and he congratulated me and he gave me his medal that day. And he said, that's, you deserve this. And I still have it. He won the 70-year-old age group and I still have the medal. It's like one of my favorite medals. So that was when I started that. It was Bill that made me, because I wanted to beat him. I was so tired of hearing him talk and, make fun of me. I was like, and we were really good friends. We ran in a lot of races together and I went and visited him in New Orleans once. His son lived down there. We did the Crescent City Classic and yeah. So I was never a
Beautiful.
runner. I was never a runner. And now, I mean, look, I did ultras and marathons and all kinds of stupid stuff. So,
Oh, I know.
but I came from not, even thinking, I don't know, 46-minute 5K. I thought I was going to die.
Oh, yeah. There are times where a 46-minute 5K still kill me.
So yeah, but I covered running and that's what really got me into it, I guess if you hang around runners long enough, but it took me like, I would say about 12 years before I really, got into it of covering running.
It's a cult, so like
Yeah, I
they
didn't
bring you in
know.
slowly.
I didn't know. I really didn't know. But I liked runners. I loved them. It was one of my favorite things to cover. I love Manchester Road Race. I covered it every year. Oh my God, I love the Manchester. That's the best day. Thanksgiving is the best day. Everybody's in a good mood. Everybody's happy. Everybody wants to talk to you. Everybody's drunk. I mean, it's great. It's great.
Everybody's drunk.
Yeah, well, lots of people are. So,
All right, so
just, yeah, it's fun. If I could just cover running all the time, it would be really fun.
what is your
It's one of
favorite sport to cover? Is it running?
yeah, yeah,
Was
of
it
course.
running before you started running?
Yes,
Really?
yes,
That's interesting.
yes. Because I don't know. Well, no, I do know why. Because everybody has a story.
Yeah.
Why did you start running? Everybody has that story. Everybody has my story.
I
And
also like
sometimes it's not that exciting, but sometimes it is, it's sometimes it's interesting. So
I like the individuality of it. Like personally for me, it was
yeah,
very much like it is my thing. Like no matter what, even if I have 74 people pacing me,
yeah,
I still have to take every step.
you can do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and when I had been struggling so bad with depression, so when I finally had something to hold on to that was really just about me,
Yep.
it was such a change for like it saved me, but like you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
but I think obviously we both of us know like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of runners and yeah, it's always fascinating to find out like what started it
I
and
think,
how it leads, how
yeah, I think
everybody's doing it for a different reason.
for women too, and me in particular, it was very empowering
Yes.
that I didn't know I could do things that I did. Probably like you know,
Yes.
you didn't know you could do things that you do. And I mean, I went from a 46-minute 5K to a 22-minute 5K. I mean, that was 6 years ago, but still, like, if anybody told me I could run a 20, I would have been like, what are you on drugs?
Well, yeah. I
But I did it, and nobody can take that away. Just like you run 100 milers, and nobody can take that away from you, even if you don't. Maybe you stop doing it or you don't do it. You've done it,
yeah.
and nobody can take that away from you. And to me, it was very empowering. It was very, I didn't know my body could do things that it did. I didn't know I could run a marathon. I didn't know I could do an ultra. I didn't know I could do any of that stuff.
But every time you do it, like it's funny because the same thing where like I would, I didn't think I could do a half marathon till I did it. Then it was like, well, there's no way I
Oh
can
yeah,
do a marathon until I did
yeah,
it. And like,
right.
I mean, yeah, it's crazy. So what do you have any like story that you wrote about that just sticks out as like your favorite story or one of? I mean, obviously you've written for a lot of years, but
Yeah. Well, the Peter Marshall story was good. The man who had Alzheimer's, he was because I got really when I get really involved in stories, that's when they're better for me.
yeah.
I got to know him personally and know his wife personally, and that was a good story. The probably the guys at the Manchester Road Race. There was a guy, and I hate to. It sounds morbid, but this is kind of my theme here, I guess. There was a guy who are you aware of the plaiders at the Manchester Road Race? The guys who wear the plaid jackets that run and sing.
No.
Okay, so there's a group of guys. Well, they don't do it anymore. Last year was their last year. They went to the Montreal Marathon in 1976, and they all bought these like really ugly plaid suits. They were a matching suit, and they were wool matching. Well, they're crazy, they're wacky guys. So they bought these plaid jackets. They saw them in a thrift shop, and there was like four of them, and plaid pants. And they were like, "Oh, we need these," because of course, right?
Yeah.
So they came back and they're like, "What are we going to do with these?" And they all ran in the Manchester Road Race. So they said, "Hey, why don't we run with these?" They ditched the pants because they were too hot, but they ran with the jackets, and they called themselves the Platters, which is the Platters like singing group, like they sing "Only You."
Okay.
So one of the guys, Steve, was actually could sing. And so they would go along the route and they would stop. They would see somebody like an older lady or a little kid or something, and they would stop. And there was like four or five of them, and they would sing "Only You"
Oh.
to the little kid or the lady or whatever. And so after they did it a few years, people started saying, "Hey, like it's the Platters," and they were just crazy. They wore sunglasses and they were just fun. They were a fun group of guys, and they'd stop at the Hungry Tiger and get a drink and whatever. And people started giving them, they'd wait for them and they'd give them champagne, or they'd give them Bloody Marys, or they'd stop with a band and they would sing with the band and they would dance, and they always wore their plaid jackets. Well, in 2003 or 2, Steve was a veteran. He was a Vietnam veteran, and he got pancreatic cancer.
Oh.
And I was at a race down, Way Heading told me about it, and I was like, oh, okay. And I really didn't know these guys. And we met down in New London in this bar, this like seedy bar called the Dutch Tavern. And those guys they were funny. They were, like how runners are
Yep.
goofy and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But then we started talking about pancreatic cancer, and they all got real quiet. And Steve Hancock was his name. And Steve just talked about, how like this is what's happening and this is what, and he was very matter of fact about it. And they just, because it's like, they're like goofy and crazy and silly. And oh, by the way, pancreatic cancer, and what are we going to do? And he's like, well, maybe, he goes, if I can't run, here's what you guys can do. You can put me like in a baby stroller, and you can push me in the baby stroller, and they're like, okay, yeah, we can let you go at the top of the hill. And he's like, yeah. So like, it was, so he ran the race a couple years. So I wrote that story, and he ran the race a couple years after that, and there was an outpouring of support for him, and he died a couple summers later. He lived pretty long for somebody with pancreatic cancer, and I got to be really good, close friends with the guys who, were the other platters, and they kept going. They kept going until last year, and they just said, you know what, got too hard. Some of the guys they're older and they couldn't. Some of them were walking and some of them were running, and so they just said this is it. So they did it for like 40 years, and so that's the kind of story.
That's an amazing story.
They're it's fun, but it's sad, but it's it's good,
humanity.
right? It's a lot of it's a little bit of everything, and that's what I try to dig deep into that kind of stuff and see what comes out of it, and usually it's pretty interesting stuff.
What do you think was the hardest story you had to write, or like the worst?
I want to say the worst, but some of the hardest stuff right now is, I'll be perfectly honest with you, is the transgender stuff. I've written a lot about that, and it's a flashpoint. It's very, people are very for it, or very against it, or very. And I did cover the two transgender girls that ran track. One ran for Bloomfield, one ran for Cromwell.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you that these kids, the stuff that they had to go through from adults, like harassing them and being jerks and being mean, it just broke my heart that all they wanted to do was run.
And they're kids. They're fucking children.
15 years old. And it was just, I just felt so bad for them, how people reacted to this. And it's just hard because, like I said, I there's two sides, and people say, there's a biological thing, and but my bottom line is these are kids.
Yeah.
These are kids, and they just want to do a sport, and you can't tell them, okay, you can be a girl all day in school, and then you have to be a boy when you run track. Like, that's just crazy. Like, how does that work? Like, it doesn't make sense, So to me, that's been a difficult story. It's very emotional. It's very partisan. There was a lot. Connecticut went through a lot of stuff. Right now, there's a lawsuit that's pending. It's been appealed. Mm-hmm. So we're waiting for the appeals court to hear, to come through with the ruling. And Connecticut's sort of been left alone by the current administration right now, but that could change.
Right.
And then I probably will have to write more stories about that, which I'm,
that's a heartbreaking thing to have to deal with.
Yeah, it is. It's tough. It's tough because, I saw these kids. I saw them compete, and they didn't always win.
Well, right.
They got beat. They got beat by other people, and their records have been broken by other people. So
I wonder too, what, the statistics of it, right? Because it's like less than 1% of the population are trans to begin with. So
yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I'm sorry.
No, I know. I'm just
I don't know. There's what my experience is, say you're a transgender girl competing in a sport, and for example, Terry Miller from Bloomfield was transgender, competed in track, won everything. Terry competed in cross country too, and you know what? Nobody cared because she wasn't that good in cross country.
Right.
So to me, the message was, if you win, then we're going to care, but if you don't win, it's fine. And that is kind of messed up.
That's a disgusting message.
Personally, yeah, personally, I think that's messed up. As I'm talking as my own human self.
Right. No, I agree 100%. Like, these are kids.
As a reporter, I have to present both sides,
right,
of the case and of the situation, and there are two sides. So, that's it's just tough. It's tough. It's tough right now.
Right, but as a reporter, you have to give the facts, and then
right. But you also have to allow the other side, both sides, to state their case.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, those are the facts. Like, this person believes this. This person believes this. Yeah. That's a fact. Yeah. You're not saying who's right and wrong, but you have to deliver.
No.
Right. No, and then as a human being on the side, you could be like, okay, these are children. Right. Stop it.
Right. I actually said that to a lady once. I was like, this kid is 15 years old. Like, calm down, you know?
Yeah.
It just, yeah. It's so that has been that was a very hard story to write and has been, continued to be a hard story to write. Just because, like I
So
said, because of the emotions, people just get very worked up about it one way or the other. So,
I would assume too, like a lot of times working, like, doing high school stories and stuff, and you might not see it as much, but like, how do I say this nicely? Parents are awful, right?
yeah,
Like in a lot of ways, like
yeah,
parents.
yeah. They don't, I don't, I don't usually deal with that very much personally.
Okay.
I'm trying to think if I've had any issues. Yeah, I've seen them be awful to coaches.
Yeah.
I've seen them be awful to very good coaches, that
Well,
I'm
and it's the
like,
same because
really?
like with kids, I was PTA, everything,
Yeah.
volunteered in the schools for years and years and years. And how parents would treat
Yeah.
teachers and other
Mhm.
volunteers and stuff, it blew my mind. And
Yeah.
same thing with coaches and
Yeah. Coaches
staff
are,
and
yeah. Coaches really get. My son is a coach in Arizona and he coaches middle school kids and he's like, I don't want to go any higher up than this. This is fine, he doesn't want the pressure. He doesn't want, and even with being in middle school, he still gets the parents, or the relatives, of people that don't like what he's doing or whatever and let him know about it. And, I mean, high school coaches don't make any money, it's like they're just doing it because they love
the
it.
money doing this,
Yeah,
right?
it's not. Yeah, they're not doing it to get rich.
No,
So,
they're doing it because they have a passion and they love the
exactly.
kids and,
Right.
you
Right.
know,
Right. So, yeah. So it's no. I don't. I'm trying to think. I don't usually. I don't. I've had not really. I mean, maybe I have, and I just can't remember it. But I don't. I've not had really any issues, with parents. So I don't know. I mean, because most of the parents like what I do. They write. I write a story about their kid. Their
I
kid did
guess
great or
parents would like
whatever.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're not really writing anything. It's not like the NBA where you're writing, wow, your kid missed, 10 free throws and they suck. Like you're not going to write that. You kind of
Your kid sucks.
let's put it this way. There's levels, okay? So there's like the professional level where people are getting paid. Then there's the college level where actually now people are getting paid also.
Yeah.
And then there's the high school level where people aren't getting paid. So I'm talking the participants. So
Right.
you cover something accordingly, like you would go after a professional athlete if they screwed up in a game, where as a high school kid screws up in a game, you kind of, you might be a little more, you give them more leeway, or whatever. Like you don't, I mean, I'll write it, the kid missed a free throw and they lost the game, but I'm not going to dwell on it. I'm not going to make that the beginning of my story. You just kind of put it in the story, but yeah, there's different levels and you have to know your level. Some sports writers don't know their level. And I've
Right.
worked with these sports writers that don't know their level and they go after people and they try to cause trouble and it's like this is UConn women. This is not the Red Sox or the Yankees or whatever, it's a little bit different. So,
All right. And
yeah. So
okay. Speaking of UConn women, like one more topic I really want to talk about is like women's sports and the
uh-huh.
change that you've seen over the years, right? Like there was a time where they didn't have as,
No.
how has it changed through the years?
I think well, I mean, UConn women is a different animal because
That's an anomaly.
yeah, because most places you go to, they don't act like people do here in Connecticut about women's sports, which is kind of too bad. You go places and you just think everybody thinks this way and they really don't. Like we saw with Caitlin Clark. You know who Caitlin Clark is, right?
Hmm.
So Caitlin Clark it was like she invented basketball in Iowa, and everybody's like, no, actually, UConn was good in Tennessee, and there were other
Right.
there were other places that had basketball, So, but that's how they were like, oh my god, the people just went crazy over her, and you saw that explosion with, we had already seen it here, but then kind of the whole country, I mean, they were selling out, NBA arenas, and it was just crazy how people flock to this player and very and she, by the way she's like really nice. Like I talked to her a couple of times. She was awesome. for somebody who has to deal with all the stuff she has to deal with, I was like super impressed, because everybody wants to talk to her. Everybody wants a piece of her. The time I had to talk to her, the last time I had to talk to her is when she didn't make the Olympic team. That was a little awkward,
Yeah, that's got to be tough.
Yeah, so, but she was great. Like she was fine, She said, it's not my time yet. And, maybe it was her time, maybe it wasn't. But yeah, going back to, I remember when I came to the Hartford Courant, I had covered Rutgers women's basketball down in New Jersey. And I remember we went to an NCAA tournament game, and New Jersey covered women's basketball very well. Rutgers was good. And we had like 4 beat writers that would cover the games. And I remember going to North Carolina State. It was 1988, I think. And we all walked in to Kay Yao's office. Kay Yao is this wonderful, wonderful North Carolina State coach. Oh, I loved her. Super nice lady. And so we all walk in and she's like, oh my God, like, what are you guys all doing here? And we're like, it's the NCAA tournament. We're covering the game, Rutgers, NC State. Like, they didn't even send a reporter from their newspaper down the street to cover the game because it was the women, it wasn't the men. NC State was big men's, North Carolina, Duke, they're all big men's basketball programs, and they just didn't care about the women at all. And she was floored, and we were kind of floored that nobody showed up, So, and I came to Connecticut, really nobody kind of understood that, at that point. And I remember going with UConn to the Final Four in New Orleans, 1991. And the arena, it wasn't even in the big arena. It was a lakefront arena, which is like an 8,000 seat arena. And it wasn't full. There's probably like 5,000 people there. And it was like Tennessee, UConn, Virginia, somebody else. I can't remember who else was there. Maybe Stanford. I don't know. But it was great basketball. I mean, Pat Summitt was coaching, and Tennessee won. And, it just, people just, and then then Rebecca Lobo came.
Yep.
And then slowly people start, and then they had the 95 season where they won every single game. They beat Tennessee, and then they won the national championship. And that was it for Connecticut. Everybody, and I was mostly a high school writer before that. And then 2 years after that, they said to me, we want you to cover the UConn women full time with another person. We had 2 people on the beat full time covering UConn women.
That's amazing.
It was great. Yeah. 1997.
I remember that too.
Yeah, 97 to 2008, I wasn't the main beat writer. I was the beat writer for 1 year. And then I kind of just went and wrote features, and, what a great job. I go to Tennessee, I'd write a Tennessee story. I go to Notre Dame, I'd write a Notre Dame story. I go all over the country and write, whoever they were going to play, I would just write about them. And it was so much fun. I mean, of course I had small children at the time, so my family didn't much care for it.
Right.
But, yeah, NCAA time was always, my family hated March. They hated March. They just were not happy with March. So
fair.
But yeah, we went back to New Orleans in 2004, and I took my mom, and it was a great trip. It was so much fun. And that UConn won again, obviously, that year. So yeah, so it's been, I mean, now it's just, it's just grown even so much in the last 5 years, just with the coverage and national coverage, people covering it, I mean, it's just like, I went to the Final Four 2 years ago when UConn played Iowa in the Caitlin Clark game, when, Paige Beckers and Caitlin Clark. You should have seen that place. It was insane, Celeste. There was so many reporters there. Like, they couldn't even fit us all in. We were like crammed in. There was so much interest in it. It was crazy.
Beautiful.
And I never saw anything like it. The one time it does remind me of, so I went to the World Cup in 1999, the Women's Soccer World Cup. Remember that famous World Cup with all the Christine Lilly, and the girl took off her shirt and she had her sports bra on. Yeah. So I went to the first game at Giant Stadium. There was, when it was called Giant Stadium, there was 80,000 people there watching women's soccer. And it was 1999, and I was just like, oh my God, look at this.
Isn't that?
There's 80,000 people watching women's soccer. Like, we didn't even have soccer in school. I couldn't play soccer. We didn't have it. All I could play was field hockey. That's all they had.
Well, yeah, women played field hockey.
Or run cross country, and I hated running, so I wasn't going to do cross country. So there was no soccer. I would have played soccer.
Or dance and gymnastics.
Oh, yeah, wow. We didn't have that. We had a small school. So.
Well, no, I mean, but just that's what it was acceptable.
That was 1980. 1982. From then to 1999, when 80,000 people watching women's soccer, it was just those kind of moments just kind of hit you like, whoa, like it's historical. I'm witnessing history here, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty that I do like stuff like that. Of course, I was pregnant at the time, and I was miserable. That it was a hot day, and I was just I think I took a nap during the game because I was tired. I was pregnant with Kate. I was like, oh,
Like, I get to sleep through history. Okay, I'm here.
yeah. Well, I saw it, and I was like, I gotta take a nap.
That's so great. Well, we'll blame Kate because why
Right,
not?
right.
Right.
Kate, who's gonna make a new song for your show?
Now you've said it. It has to
Yeah,
happen.
I know. We're
That'd be
gonna do it.
amazing.
We're gonna do it. My daughter is a musician, so
It's just so great.
she is,
Yeah.
and she just got a dog, so everything's good.
She's a strong woman athlete too.
She is.
Yeah.
She is.
Yep.
She did all kinds of crazy stuff. She did luge. She did surfing in the winter time. Kate hated sports. Her brother loved sports. She hated sports. Growing, and I used to drag her to all my stuff. So she had to go to all the practices and all this stuff, and she didn't like basketball. She didn't understand the point. She liked running, but she kept getting hurt, so she couldn't run in high school. But so she did crew. She did luge when she was in high school. We went
And
to
now
Lake
she
Placid.
does a lot. Like she's a skier, rock climbing.
She does rock climbing. Yeah, yeah. She did. Yeah, she used to surf in the winter out in Narragansett.
Crazy. She's
I know.
still a runner.
Yeah, she's not running as much now, but she got a mountain bike, so she's been doing that.
Okay.
But she runs a little. I think she runs a little bit, but no, it's too hot out there right now. Probably, if I was out there, I'd run with her. She lives in Oregon, so. Anyways, yeah.
Well, I'm going to, on that positive note, we can wrap up. Thank you so much for coming on, Lori.
No, thanks. It was fun.
It's funny because I text you and I'm like, oh, come on, your story will be fascinating. You're like, I'm boring. And I'm like, no, girl, no. Trust me on this.
Yeah, I am.
No, it's fascinating, like all aspects of it. Because, we think of our sport, but there's so many parts of it. Like the fact that you're out there writing about our sport and like following it and all these people, it's
fun.
It is.
Fun.
And I always tell everybody that, I know the Lori Riley.
Well, you know where that came from? That was all those people I covered all those years ago that, I showed up to races and to run them, and they were like, what the hell are you doing here?
Right?
And they're like, really? You? So, so that
are you out here to get a scoop? Like, what's happening?
Right. Are you some other Lori Riley? Are you the Lori Riley that we used to know that used to cover races all the time? So I think that's where that came from. The Lori.
Well, it's going to be the Lori Riley. You will always be the Lori Riley to me.